Hey everyone, I know you've been following the news about that just awful suicide at Taiwan's Workforce Development Agency. And, well, I don't blame you. It's a story that really sticks with you, doesn't it? It makes you think. You've probably seen articles everywhere, some maybe even in Chinese, and you're probably wondering what actually happened and what's happening now.
Uh,
So, that's exactly what we're going to be looking at today in our deep dive into this complicated case.
it really has captured everyone's attention, hasn't it? It's gone way beyond just this one terrible incident, you know? It's really making people think about workplace bullying in Taiwan, especially in those government agencies, the ones that seem like they can do whatever they want.
Right, exactly.
Sure.
And you've been doing some research, which is great. You found articles like this one from Cut that really breaks down all the punishments that are being handed out to the people in charge. So let's get into it, huh? Let's start with what happened. A public servant took his own life at the agency, and right away, people started to worry about, whether the workplace there was toxic.
What's really striking is how much this reminds people of other really bad things that have happened in Taiwan. Do you remember the Hung Chun-Chu case? Back in 2013, that young man who died during military training, people were so angry about the abuse in the military. This case at the Workforce Development Agency feels so similar, you know? It's like something painful has come back up. It makes everyone remember that these problems never really went away.
It feels like this case has become a symbol, almost. Like it's forcing people to face this really uncomfortable truth of what's happening behind the scenes. And the public outcry, wow, people want answers. They want justice. So tell us about what's been happening on that front.
Well, the Ministry of Labor has been really busy trying to respond, and they haven't been holding back with the consequences. According to that article you mentioned, Ji Yurong, she was the head of the North Keeling Yulon Hualien Kinmen Matsu branch. Well, she was given two major demerits, and she was removed from her position, too.
Wow, two major demerits. That's a pretty big deal, isn't it? For anyone who doesn't know how the Taiwanese government works, that could really hurt someone's career. They're definitely trying to show everyone that they're taking this seriously. But is it enough, though?
It's a strong message, that's for sure. But it goes even further than that. Kai Mengliam, he was the Director General of the entire Workforce Development Agency. Well, he got a major demerit, too. And he's been reassigned to a job where he doesn't supervise anyone. Basically, they've taken away any real power he had.
So he's been demoted. That's huge for someone at his level, isn't it? I mean, he was in charge of the whole agency, and now he's been sidelined. But wait, the article mentions two more people are being investigated, right? What's happening with them?
You're right, there are two more people, but the article doesn't say who they are. We do know that all four of them, she and Kai and those two other people, they've all been referred to the Control Yuan for more investigation.
The Control Yuan. For those of us who aren't experts in Taiwanese politics, that might sound kind of mysterious. What does that mean for these officials, and why is it a big deal?
So the Control Yuan is like Taiwan's watchdog. It's this independent government body that looks into anything that might be wrong, especially if it's done by public officials. So this referral means that she and Kai and the others are really under the microscope now. The Control Yuan can actually recommend that they be impeached, censured. They could even recommend criminal charges.
So it's not just about what's happening within the agency. This is a whole other level of investigation, right? With even bigger consequences. And I'm guessing this is where all that public pressure really comes into play.
Absolutely. Remember all that outcry we talked about. It's not just noise, it's making a difference. The Control Yuan is definitely feeling the pressure. People want them to do a really thorough investigation. They want to see someone held accountable, not just a little slap on the wrist.
And that probably explains why things are moving so fast. I mean, these punishments were announced barely a week after the suicide. It's like they're trying to show they're serious.
Yeah.
But some people might say it's just a knee-jerk reaction, right?
Yes.
Right? Are they maybe just focusing on punishing these individuals without actually dealing with the bigger problems, the systemic issues,
That's the big question, isn't it? And that's why this Control UN investigation is so important. It's not just about figuring out who did what. It's about understanding everything that led up to this tragedy, the culture, the power dynamics, all those unspoken rules.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion, right?
Yeah.
This isn't just one case of bullying. It's about the whole system that allowed it to happen. And if we're talking about systemic issues, this case doesn't just have implications for the Workforce Development Agency, does it?
You got it. What's happening here is having a big impact on the whole Taiwanese government. Other agencies are paying close attention because they know they could be next.
So it's like a domino effect. This one case is making all these other organizations look at themselves and wonder, do we have the same problems? But beyond that, is there any real chance for change? What kind of reforms could actually make a difference?
Well, it's not just about punishing a few bad people, right? It's about looking at the whole system. We need better policies against bullying, clear ways for people to report it, and most importantly, a culture that doesn't allow people to abuse their power.
Yeah, a culture shift is really important. It's one thing to have policies written down, but you have to make sure people actually follow them. People need to feel safe speaking up. But let's be real, we're talking about government agencies here. Bureaucracy is slow. How likely is it that we'll see any real change anytime soon?
Yeah, you're right. Change in these big organizations, it doesn't happen overnight. But I think this case, it's really got things moving. All this public anger, the media attention, it's putting a lot of pressure on the government to do something. They can't just ignore this.
So maybe this tragedy, it will be what finally makes things change for good. But it's not just up to the government, is it? We all have to do our part to make workplaces better, whether we're in Taiwan or anywhere else.
That's right. This case really shows us that bullying can happen in any workplace. We need to be able to see the signs, you know?
Yeah.
We need to speak up if we see something wrong, and we need to build a culture of respect and understanding.
Yeah, and sometimes that means having those difficult conversations, challenging the way things are, even if it makes people uncomfortable. We can't just accept things because that's how it's always been done, right?
Absolutely not.
Oh.
We need to ask ourselves those hard questions, like, are we making a workplace where everyone feels safe? Are we caring about people's well-being as much as we care about getting work done? Those are the kinds of conversations that will actually lead to change.
And those conversations are happening right now, all over Taiwan. This case has started a national conversation, and it's a conversation that needed to happen. It's terrible that it took something so awful to bring it up, but now that it's here, we can't let it go away.
I agree. This is a time to think, to act, to hold ourselves and each other accountable. We need to make sure that this tragedy leads to real change, not just a news story that people forget about.
That's a great point. This deep dive has been really eye-opening and, to be honest, pretty emotional. We've talked about a lot of things, from the details of the case to what it means for Taiwan and the rest of the world.
We looked at the punishments, the investigations, how the public has reacted. But what really hits home is the fact that someone lost their life, and the fact that we need to change things now.
And that leads us to a final question for you, our listener. This case has shown everyone the problem of workplace bullying. But what can we actually do to prevent tragedies like this in the future? What can we do, even if we're not the ones in charge, to create workplaces where people feel safe and supported?
It's a really important question, and one that we all need to think about carefully. We can't just sit around and wait for the people at the top to change things. We all have a part to play in building a culture of respect and empathy. Starts with what we say and do every day.
That's so true. It's about paying attention to how we're acting, speaking up when we see something wrong, and supporting people who have been bullied. Staying silent just protects the bullies. By speaking out, we can create a world where that kind of behavior isn't accepted.
Exactly. We need to be allies, not bystanders. We need to remember that everyone deserves to feel safe and respected at work, and making that happen is something we all have to work on together.
This deep dive has been heavy, but it's been so important. We've talked about things that are hard to face, we've explored complicated issues, and hopefully we've gotten everyone thinking. We can't let this conversation stop here. We need to keep learning, keep talking, keep pushing for a world where workplaces are truly safe and supportive for everyone.
It starts with each of us. Let's honor the memory of that public servant who died by working together to make real and lasting change.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Remember, knowledge is power, and together we can make a difference.